Okay, this is a series of demonstrations of trees. So the first one I'm starting out with is a palm tree. And so I'm just going around the trunk of the palm tree with rounded strokes. I'm defining some areas with darks, and then I'm going to go in with my lights. You can choose to work light to dark or dark to light. You can look at the subject and kind of see what's the easiest to place first. The leaves on the palm tree, you want to hold your pencil down hard on the paper at the stem of the leaf, and then press hard and then drag the pencil away from that center part and lift your pencil really quickly. That technique helps to kind of get the tapering on the edges of the palm leaves. Okay, and then I'm just looking to apply value as it's related to color. So I'm putting lights, I'm putting middle tones, I'm putting darks in to help define the value of each of these different parts of the palm leaf. And then I'm just going to go back in and just redefine some things with some darks and some lights. Okay, so I'm going to again go into the trunk of this type of tree, and I'm going to use rounded strokes. So you always want to make sure that you're working with the contour, applying the colored pencil with the contour of the tree. And then I will go up and just kind of go and define some different branches. So the thicker trunk of the tree, you want to make sure that you add some real nice depth and form to. The branches, as they kind of taper off and split, will become thinner. Some areas of those thinner branches I'm going to make darker, and some areas I'm going to leave lighter, so that way the leaves that I'm going to place in later can overlap on top of them. And so I'm just kind of working my way through the branches. Am I drawing every branch exactly as I see it and matching it perfectly to the photo? No, I'm not. I'm getting an idea from the photo and putting the more defined larger branches in from reference. But once they start splitting off into tiny little edges, I kind of just mimic what I see. I don't draw exactly what I see. I kind of get the impression of it. Okay, so placement of leaves. So I'm starting with this lighter green, and I like to use the side of my pencil to kind of do this broken color stroke. So this is really nice for trees that have a lot of leaves on them because it's a quick way to place in a bunch of textured strokes that appear like small leaves. And you can kind of just put the pencil down, push on it, drag it. You can shift it around. You can also kind of like stipple it and kind of like press it hard and make like smaller mark making. Right now I'm kind of like scumbling around lightly to kind of just place all of those leaves in the tree. And so I'm going to kind of go around and just, again, like using the photo as a reference for like the idea of how this should look. I'm not like drawing every single leaf like exactly how I see it. This is an impressionism, so it's supposed to be kind of quick and loose and spontaneous and getting the impression very quickly. Okay, once I have all the green placed, then I'm going to go in with some red, and I'm just looking at places where the green is darker and just kind of building shadows underneath large like chunks of leaves. And so I'm just putting some red in there really, really lightly. Yes, it looks very red right now, but I'm going to remedy that later with some green over top with some more like punctuated strokes where you can really see like defined like dashes of light green. Okay. I'm also going to go in with some dark green over top of that red. That's going to help to neutralize it. It's going to make it more of a shadow tone and less of looking like red. But if a little red pops out here and there, that's okay. That is what the Impressionists would let happen. So I'm just going to go around and kind of clean and tidy this red area up now with this dark green. Still using my pencil kind of on like an angle on its side. When I need to define a particular area, I'll use it on its point. Okay, so now you'll see how I'm making those very punctuated marks with the light green. I'm pressing really hard, firmly, making a very like distinguished, like small, almost like stippled, broken color mark. And so I'm going around to the areas of the tree that feel closer, like the branches and the leaves that are closer to do this. I'm not going to do it all over the entire tree because that would take forever. And it also wouldn't give kind of the illusion of depth within the tree itself. So I'm just going to the branches that are closer and just adding these more defined marks that are going to feel like those individualized independent leaves. Okay, now that I'm done with the leaves, I'm going to go back to the trunk and to the tree branches. I'm going to pull my brown in with more pressure, and I'm going to go through and kind of pull out the darker areas of the tree branches that I can see in front of patches of leaves. Areas of the tree branches where I can kind of see them through the leaves, I'm going to leave light so that way the leaves appear to be in front of them. And so you can see how I vary the pressure in my line as I pull it through with the colored pencil for those tiny branches that grow throughout the tree. Okay, and so now I'm just gonna quick pull down the value, add more layers of colored pencil, putting a dark blue in there with the brown to kind of make it darker, pulling things out, just kind of tidying stuff up. If you have areas that are too dark, you can go ahead and you can put a kneaded eraser in there, like push it in if you have it. If not, just lightly drag your white plastic eraser to kind of lighten any areas that got too dark. You wanna pay attention to the application of value. Darker values where they're placed should be opposite where the lighter values, like where the sun is hitting things. But that's just how you tidy it up and kind of finish it out. Okay, so this next tree is going to be kind of like a patch of pine trees. And so I'm going ahead and I'm putting in some red for the shadow areas. And I'm just kind of putting it darker where the shadows are darker, lighter where they are lighter. This is going to help to break up the green and neutralize it in some places. There's kind of like a little bush next to it. And so again, like the areas that are darker, I'm adding more pressure to my red and then just kind of putting a little bit of red all the way throughout just to kind of break up and neutralize the green. Then I'm going to go in with my dark green. And so the darkest areas that I see shadows in, I'm going to go ahead over the red with the dark green, and so the two colors should mix to make like a neutral shadow tone. Some of the red can pop through, and that's fine. I'm using a scumbling texture with the side of my pencil right now to create kind of the texture of like foliage of leaves and make it look like there's a whole bunch of individual leaves when there's really, just scumbling mark making there. And so that's a way that you can imitate that. Okay, and then I kind of drag my colored pencil kind of like side to side, up and down a little bit to create this kind of pine tree texture. I'm looking to kind of build out from the shadows into the midtones. I'm going to take a lighter green, and so I'm thinking about analogous colors throughout all of these trees using a dark green, a yellow green, and then a yellow in the lightest areas to kind of create the color application that I need to get the textures and also the value from the light that's hitting the trees. And so I'm just going to go through and continue with this stroke. Okay, now I'm applying my yellow and I want to put that in the lightest areas of the tree to kind of mimic where the sun is hitting those trees and also kind of, changing the value. Okay, and then I'm just taking a dark blue right now and going over where the red is, that it's still popping out and looks very red, and also where the shadows need to be darker. I'm going to blend it a little bit with some more pressure with the dark green, kind of pull and tie everything together. And so I have some separation from like the dark tree that's to the left and kind of behind this lighter tree, and then this bush should pop out forward from those two trees. So if you need to do a whole bunch of pine trees like on a mountain or like in the distance, you can really kind of churn these out pretty quickly by just using your pencil on its side and kind of dragging it kind of in this like triangle, but not perfect triangle motion to kind of make some nice happy little trees there. And so you want to just change up kind of the different greens that you're using. If you don't have multiple greens in your set, that's okay. You can layer a green and a yellow and get a really nice yellow green, especially if you change up the pressure and keep the pressure light. You can also float a dark blue in there to create like a blue-green for the shadowed areas underneath kind of the branches of these pine trees. And so that kind of gives you an idea of how to go about that for like a big group of pine trees and then kind of a more detailed pine tree as well.